Hello, and welcome to my summer reading roundup. I think summer's over, right? I read 16 books this summer, and I will kindly categorize them because there's something for everyone in the mix, I promise. I have 4 books that focus on inner work and nonfiction, memoir, healing space. And then I also have 4 books that really, at the core of them all, are complex relationships. So if you're a fan of those, stay tuned. I also have 4 romance-centric books. This includes queer romance for those of my gays out there. And then also, I have 4 books that I really can't categorize, but I'll give you a hint. One of them is Dungeon Crawler Carl. So stay tuned. All right. So I'm going to start with the 4 nonfiction books that I think definitely helped me on my inner work healing journey kind of vibe this summer. So the first one is Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. And this one really is, in some way, it's kind of like a dictionary for your emotions. Like, how do I define my emotions and how can I navigate what I'm feeling and give a name to it, right? So often in our daily lives, I feel like there's that whole predicament of putting a name to a face or a face to a name, rather. And this is really that for emotions and navigating your inner turmoil. So if you want to look at that, I think this is a great book for that. Next up on the nonfic train, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. This was a recommendation by one of my friend's friends, and it is a little woo-woo, and it definitely really centers on the mind-body connection, right? So if you conquer something in your mind, you can conquer something in your body. And there is some truth to that. I definitely think if you're not in the headspace for a little woo woo magic, like if I just say affirmations, I'll heal myself of some type of sickness. This might not be it for you, but there are some great nuggets of wisdom in here. I personally love an affirmation and I don't do nearly enough. So this is a good reminder to do so. Okay, so my third nonfiction book that I read this month, and also I think my favorite, is Parvati Shallow, Nice Girls Don't Win. And oh, I want to read the whole tagline: How I Burned It All Down to Claim My Power. um, First of all, Parvati is very front of mind right now because she's currently competing on Australia versus the World Survivor, and I'm rooting for a win for my girl. But this is her memoir, and it really focuses on her journey throughout life and how she's really kind of found herself in these precarious situations in her life, and how she used her inner strength to kind of propel herself forward through life while learning. And I feel like we all kind of learn a little bit about ourselves as we go along. At least I can hope. I definitely have. And there's some habits of ours that we kind of lose along the way, and then little bits about ourselves that we kind of embrace and carry on into the newer chapters of our life. And big fan of her, so I might be a little biased, but it's a great memoir, celeb memoir. And if you love Survivor, you'll love this. If you're gay, you'll love this. If you're a human being, you'll love this. I'll preface this fourth and last nonfic book, Good Work by Paul Millard, as it might not be for everyone. If you are totally happy and totally fine in your career or your job, and you're like, my life is perfect, I'm content, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, this book might not be for you. But if you're, as its title says, reclaiming your inner ambition, so for me, I'm always trying to decide whether or not how can I evolve my career path or my calling in life? How can I embrace my skills and what I'm good at and what I enjoy? And how do I combine all of this together and make good work, as the title says? And I'm still figuring it out, but I definitely think that as I've been creatively expressing myself the last couple years, I definitely think I've learned a little bit more about how I can apply my life and career experience into this next chapter of my life. So if you want a little bit more of that in your life, Good Work is a good place to start. Here are those 4 books if you want to screenshot them. They'll also be in my comments here. All right, now on to the 4 books that really center on complex relationships. And what a great place to start, Annie Bot by Sierra Greer. This book was so interesting that I made my first and only so far reading a read along kind of vlog. I'll post a link to that here as well if you're curious and want some spoilers. But honestly, this book is just about a sex robot turned sentient. I don't know if sentient is the right word, but like she definitely becomes more human over time. And the book focuses on her relationship with her owner, Doug. And the robot's name is Annie. Oh, I'm a little nervous. So I really liked this book. The entire time through, you're really rooting for Annie and also kind of assessing like what it means to be a human and feel human emotions, but like through the lens of a robot. So it's very interesting. It's very raw and honest. And I definitely think if you're into like robots and AI and how those relationships with humans, like what they might look like. This is a little like dystopian in its nature. And I also found it very akin to the movie Companion, which is like a little bit thriller horror, but honestly, kind of very similar. So if you've seen the movie and you liked it, read Annie Bot. Or if you've read Annie Bot, definitely check out Companion if you haven't already. But very good. I would encourage you to read it. Next book is The Anthropologist by aysegul Savas. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. And this is really more of like a vignette of a couple over time. And the time frame is like not very long. Like it's really just like a season of their life. And while they're trying to navigate, trying to find a new home, where they are at I think it's like an indistinct city in Europe. I don't know if they actually mention what city they're in, but that's where they are. So it's not like the American searching for an apartment kind of life. It's definitely more European in nature. But the prose in this is fantastic. I definitely felt like I was there with them. And I think it really highlights like what it's like to be in a long-term relationship and having grown with somebody over time and also making friends as an adult and how hard that can be and really like sussing out like is this person a real friend or are we just like circumstantial friends? And also this really touches on like once we leave home or distance ourselves from like the nuclear family unit, what our relationships with our family might look like and um, how we might connect newer people in our life and assign them roles similar to like what we were in our families. So, for example, like if I had an elderly neighbor and I'm missing my grandma, I might be spending more time with my elderly neighbor. So that kind of thing. So if you're into that, this book is fantastic. It actually probably was one of my favorite summer reads this year. So really good. I might get some hate for this, but this is the one book that I read this summer that I'm like not 100% sure how I feel about it, but it's Audition by Katie Kitamura and the prose is fantastic. I think I just got a little lost in the sauce. Like it really focuses on the main character's journey um, through a play, and then just also like this guy comes into her life and is like, "I'm your son," and then so the book is kind of split in 2 parts, and the first part being like, "No, this isn't my son. I never had a son," kind of thing, and what their relationship looks like after that little intro, and then the second half is as if he was the son for real. But I didn't really know what up or down was in this book. But I can very much respect the like parallel universe thing going on, or maybe it was just like a psychological thriller in some ways, and I just didn't pick up on it. But if you're into that, if you're into being confused, this might be the book for you. Okay, and the last of the 4 books that are about complex relationships, last but not least, right? My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. And I was like so skeptical about this book at first. It has a ton of hype. I see it all over Bookstagram, all over BookTube, all over Substack, and this book I think was like the number one when that 21st century, like the best book of the 21st century um, came out. I think this was number one. So, a lot of pressure, right? I really didn't love it until about like the part where the main characters, Elena and Lila, kind of crawl out of adolescence. Like more so when they're like teenagers, that's when I started to really get into this. But their relationship is so toxic. But it's like brilliant, brilliant. And it's a part of a quartet, this book. And I did a read along with Colina Cicero on Substack. And I think pacing it out and reading it throughout the month definitely made the read more enjoyable. And I honestly, like, cliffhanger, not a spoiler, but a cliffhanger. I think I'm definitely going to want to read on in the next book and the series to see what happens. So, if you're into like a vignette of Italy and what it was like post-war, and you're into like the inner dynamics of what a female relationship might look like um, throughout a lifespan, I think this is the book for you. But I will report back once I read all of them because I think I have a personal mission to read on in the series. All right, so these are those 4 books on complex relationships. If you want to like screen grab or pause, the only one I would say you might skip, just personal bias, is Audition. But the other 3, must reads, baby. I'm gonna jump into the next 4 books, which are really focused on like romance and that sort of thing. But not like they're not all like Fabio on the cover, like ripped bodice, like romance. They're all a little bit different, and I'll explain it. So the next book is Giovanni's Room, which is definitely like a queer tragedy and kind of like advertised as a romance. And I just feel so bad for Giovanni. Like throughout the book, you can tell that he's lived a really hard life and he's just trying to like be a lover boy, and like the main character David isn't really helping. He's kind of like very matter of fact and like, oh, this is just a phase kind of vibes. But I don't want to spoil too much. I think a lot of that is from here and like the first page or so. It gets a lot more complex. Paris in the 1950s, not a great place to be gay. I don't think. I wasn't there. But this is a book, like, as you can see, I've like bookmarked a lot of it. And I did a read along with one of my friends, and we kind of paced it out pretty nice. And I think this is a book that I would definitely read again. I even bought another James Baldwin book because I like this one so much. The prose is fantastic. So if you're into great prose, you want a gay tragedy slash romance, and a little bit of like a historical vibe to it all, Giovanni's Room is fantastic. Next up on the romance train is Stag Dance by Torrey Peters, which isn't like an outwardly romantic book, but there are elements of romance and like queer relationships, and there's definitely a lot of like sexual things in here. There's, I would say, almost every character in this book is queer or trans or somewhere on the wonderful queer rainbow spectrum. And it's not just like one novel. There's also some short stories in here. I personally love the one that was like dystopian infectious disease, but make it gay. And that was my fave, I think. And then there's Lumberjacks. Like, th- this is not boring. I will say it wasn't 100% for me, but I can respect what was being done here. And I definitely think that if you like queer reads, if you like books that just kind of go for it, this is a good book. All right. This book is definitely a not Quinta Brunson, quintessential romance, but it's gay and I love it. Winging It With You, Chip Pons. Chip Pons is like a bookstagram turned author success story, super inspirational. And the book centers on Theo and Asher, these hunky 2 people on the cover. And one's a pilot, and one is a biomedical scientist or biomedical engineer. Oh my God, I can't remember, but I know it's one of those two things. And there's an amazing race type of situation going on. They last minute partner up. Mozzarella sticks are involved. There's some like there's some sexy scenes in here, and I just found like the dialogue fun, and like even some of the like subsidiary characters in the book really made it shine. Like I loved it, and it's definitely like more wholesome, but there is a little bit of sexy in there for those who want that in a romance novel. So if you're looking for a good romance book, quick read, this is great. All right, last but not least on the romance train is Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer. And this is I love looking at the cover. I just like it's so beautiful and like romantic. This is my first Abby Jimenez, and the second I finished the book, I went and purchased 3 more of her books because I loved it so much. Her like back and forth dialogue is definitely some of the best I've ever read in any book, and definitely the best ever in like a romance book. So if you're into a book that is a romance novel but isn't afraid to talk about like the, you know, mental health deep dives and like post traumatic stress disorder and panic attacks and toxic parents, like it's got grit, but it's also got a ton of heart. And I like really want to read another of her books. And allegedly, from what I've heard on the streets, is that this might be one of her best. So I hope that the others can live up to my expectations. But for now, this was a fantastic entry into the Abby Jimenez verse for me. All right. And here are those 4 romance centric books. If you want to like pause or check them out, screenshot, I don't know, write them down. Here you go. All right. So next up is the 4 books that I couldn't really categorize in comparison with the others. I'm sure I could find a through line, but I don't want to complicate things. So the first one is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, which is now a series on Amazon. It's definitely like YA mystery thriller kind of romance vibes. I don't want to give too much away, but it frames itself as like a putting the puzzle pieces together type of book. And listen, it doesn't like reinvent the wheel, but I found it enjoyable enough to want to go and check out the Amazon series. Spoiler alert, the Amazon series I didn't love. Like I watched like one, maybe 1.5 episodes. Yikes. Um, but this book was really good and it's fun, and I think they're continuing the series. I might not read along the series. Like this book was a good one and done for me, but it was enjoyable if you want just something light, like a beach read type thing. This is it. All right, so the next book I have here is Persepolis by Marjan Satrapi. I hope I said that correctly. It's a memoir, but also well, I want to show you. Hold on. It's a graphic novel too, but it's really intense. Very tragic, the state of Tehran throughout the entire memoir. And she does a great job of like injecting comedy and humor to make it a little bit lighter, but people die. Like that's no surprise if you know what's been going on in Iran for the last like couple of decades, as I've learned. But this is fantastic. I believe they made it into a movie, and I don't quote me on this, but I think it won an Academy Award. So great material, great source material for that. And I think I should probably check it out if it exists. But it's fantastic and it's like not too big. So I encourage you to read it. Okay, so this next book was like my cozy summer read. I think it was kind of my introduction into what fall might look like for me in my reads. A little bit cozier, a little bit more like, I don't know. I mean, just look at the cover. It looks cute. So this is Days at the Morisaki Bookshop, and it's very short. So if you're looking for a light read, maybe like in between reading like thesauruses or something, or maybe like in between reading giant sci-fi novels, this might be a good interruption. So this really focuses on Hidaki, who's like in her 20s, and she's really trying to figure out her life. She's a little heartbroken, and then she goes to live with her uncle, who owns a bookshop. and kind of like endearing and introspective elements kind of go from there. It also really highlights just how amazing books are and like what it is to read a book and just kind of feel like your life has changed or been altered in some way afterwards. So I encourage you to read this. It's a very feel good book. I know there's a sequel, and I'm like hesitant to read the sequel because, sometimes sequels don't land. Um, but this was fantastic. And I love Japanese literature. Like, I love translated literature as well, and maybe I will read the second one. Okay, last but not least is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman. And I feel like the Bookstagram social media verse has been encouraging me to read this book for like the longest time. I think the sheer size and thickness of this one has deterred me, but deterred me no longer because I have finished the first book in the series. Yes, there are more. And this is really like video gamey in all the best ways, and all like like the sci-fi dystopian kind of vibe as well. And it's funny. It's a really funny book. And it focuses on Carl and his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut. I know, what a name, right? I mean, even on the cover, she's really cute. I love this illustration. But it's got a lot of heart to it. It's very much like intense. It's kind of giving like if Mad Max Fury Road were a book, but turn it video game and add in some funny and cuteness into it, but also like dire straits. Definitely a great book. Probably one of my favorites that I read, and I'm definitely going to continue on in the series. So if you're looking for a book that's more like in that lane of fiction, unlike all the others that I shared today, this is the one for you. All right, so here are those last four books out of my 16, the miscellaneous friends that actually made quite an impact on me, if you want to pause there. So, as you can tell, I was a busy boy this summer in July and August. I definitely think I don't want to slow down in September. I have a lot of great books that are on the horizon. So, those are just oh, where's my comfort Pikachu? So those were my 16 books that I read this summer. Busy summer of reading, right? It kind of brought me back to when you're in grade school and they assign you a summer reading list. I'm not assigning you a summer reading list, but I hope you check out one of the books that I shared. Like most of them, if not all of them, were worthy of a first read. And there's always something for everyone, right? So if you don't like fiction, there's some nonfiction in there. If you like nonfiction or self improvement, there's a ton of fiction in there. There's some fiction that's like far out there. There's also some that is more like tethered in reality. And definitely, there's so many about complex relationships. And the through line, I think, now looking back at all my summer reads, is they kind of met me where I was at in you know, the tumult of summer and just like the ups and downs of, weather and like it being sunny, it being foggy, all a vibe. And I hope you have a wonderful September. And I hope you read one of these books.